Yes,
You
you cost yourself a bit of time.
Right.
Yeah.
But as long as you fix it, as long as you don't look away from it and go, nah, I ain't worried about it.
We're never secure.
Ever.
Ever, ever, ever.
We are all replaceable.
You can bring those things up to the morning, obviously. And
Which I did.
You probably
Yep,
did,
yep,
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, thank God for nicotine caps, buddy.
Right.
Well, geez, I was going to tell you about the Vans thing, but we're not doing the boot episode yet, so it's okay.
Yeah. Yes. Hold that one.
Yeah, I'll hang on to that one. It is, if I think about it at the time, I hope you remember to ask me, it is interesting. It'll make a lot of sense when it comes up.
Right.
But side note there. Welcome everybody to the Ice Shower After Work podcast. John and I are with you here again from the job trailer. Thank you for listening at least once more. Of course, John is here with me. How are you today, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good, my man. How are you doing?
Not bad, my friend. How was your week?
It was all right. It was a little shorter. I had a 4-day week because I had some personal stuff I had to take care of. So.
Nah, those are all right sometimes. I personally am taking Monday off just to not be at work.
Attaboy. You've been working a lot of nights, though.
I've been working a lot of nights, buddy.
So
But you know what?
that's brutal.
It's not bad. It takes a little bit of extra effort to get the things done during the day that you need to do, ordering parts, material, communicating with the people that are awake during the day to do the job. It's part of the gig.
Right.
It's not fantastic. I don't hate it. In our particular case, we get a little financial incentive for working after hours.
Yeah.
That
makes it a little worth it.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit worth it. But yeah, that's been a little tiresome lately.
But what you've been doing, the on, off, that does blow.
That's the tricky part, the swing shift stuff. We've got some friends like our buddy Nick. I know Dom listens. I would think it would be different if I was doing, let's say, 4 nights on and then I was off for a couple days and then 4 days on. Like I know a lot of police forces and firehouses and nurses do that sort of thing. So maybe they do it that way because you can get used to it. But I mean, where I'm all of a sudden on a Monday finding out, well, tonight sometimes,
right,
or tomorrow night while you're working nights, and then you're making those decisions of, well, do I not then work tomorrow so I can work tomorrow night, or do I try to work a short day, which never turns out to be a short day?
Right.
Yeah, it's troublesome, man. But I'm happy to be working regularly, so
yeah, I'm
going to complain very little.
Yeah,
sleepy.
Right.
Okay, well, everybody's sleepy, right? We're all in the shit together,
right?
It's the stuff that happens working nights. So recently, and I'd like to shout out a couple of guys here, Jason and Sean. They were working with the saw cutting company that was working with me overnights.
Are those the same guys that cut through the electrical pipe and the
why I
plumbing
brought
pipe?
it up. They accidentally cut a couple of water lines and a couple of electrical lines. No offense, boys. Shit happens. I bring it up because mistakes are going to happen. I thought maybe we could talk about fucking up on the job today.
Yeah. I mean, we all do it, right?
It happens, buddy.
It happens because we're human. And even though we try to do this professionally and we try to give it the best that we got, sometimes shit just happens.
Yes. And I think the worry of making those mistakes sometimes keeps people from getting into certain jobs. So
yeah,
good time to maybe just bring it up. Can you think any times you just fuck something up, dude?
Well, there's a level of fuck up, right? Like
yes, and we're going to get into levels of fuck ups, right?
Okay. Yeah, we're going to get, but there's fuck ups that you mention, you have to tell somebody about, right? And then there's fuck ups that, did you fuck up, but you can fix your fuck up. So did you ever really fuck up?
All right. So you're right. We should start there before we get into our own stories. Okay. Good call, buddy. Good call. So what you're talking about is the difference between, I just ran the wheels of the scissor lift into the drywall and put a moon-shaped circular hole in that, right?
Right.
All the way up to something more serious, you damage a piece of equipment or someone got injured.
Right.
All right. So there's our scale. All right. That's fair enough. Now, you just mentioned quickly, I didn't mean to step on you. I'm sorry there, buddy. If you fix your fuck up, did you really fuck up?
Exactly.
We could also argue there's varying stages of that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. We're electricians, so, you wire something wrong because you're in the go mode, right? You're go, screws, got to get it done. And then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh, that ain't right. And then you just fix it. Right?
Yes.
And then nobody ever knows that.
Yes.
You
cost yourself a bit of time.
Right.
Yeah.
But as long as you fix it, as long as you don't look away from it and go, nah, I ain't worried about it.
All right. So that's what we'll get into then. Yeah. Mistakes and errors, and so you done fucked up moments, are based on the severity of what you did, how correctable it is, And then,
And if anybody else saw you do
and
it.
if anybody else saw you do it, that's true, right? I'm sorry to say, we have probably all been in situations where we did something and corrected it with nobody knowing and went, okay, got away with that one.
Right.
But yes, and it would also, I think, not only depend on the range of what mistake you made, but what position you're in your career of what mistakes are okay as learning experiences, what ones you got to bring. So
Oh God, yeah, right.
there's the J-dub mistake, but then if you're an apprentice, you might want to bring. So
Right.
let's start with levels of your job position, and maybe this will lead us down the right road of, let's start with apprentices, okay?
Yep.
Mistakes as apprentices, they're going to happen more often than the average person because you're still learning.
Yep.
Um,
I just had a thought. So when it comes to apprentices, right, when they screw up, typically it is avoidable with education.
once they knew better.
Right. Or because with apprentices, they should be working with somebody closely, right?
They certainly should be, yeah,
They should
definitely.
not be running around by themselves.
Right.
Right. And that depends on how far they are in their apprenticeship.
Size of the job site, amount of leadership you got, sure. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, sure.
So, and we see, and I think every trade sees, you're going to see an uptick in those kind of screw ups in first, second year, third year, kind of.
I think that's a swinging scale that sort of scoops up and then back down again,
Right.
because probably ask more questions as an earlier year apprentice. And then as not only you learn more things, but you get greater responsibilities, harder projects,
Yep.
the opportunity to make more mistakes gets up there. And then as you get to be more of a professional, they hopefully slide back down the other side,
You hope,
right?
right? You hope.
So I think those people probably get weeded out through the wash as time goes on.
Yeah. Probably a lot of them.
Because you've mentioned before about somebody who just wasn't getting it, told them the same thing
Over and over and over
over
again.
and over again.
Yep.
So there's that. And that's something that was kind of like, you need to understand as you go. It's a learning process in the trades.
Yep.
Don't be scared because you think you might screw something. Man, I have screwed up so much stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Some of it not even really related to my job. So listen, for example, okay, working on a job site, gas station build. I had trenched out the day before a 1.5 foot wide trench, 150 feet long, that I had put a bunch of pipes into that were going from the store to the gas station. I watched as the guy filled it in. I knew that trench was there. I knew that ground was brand new. It had been raining off and on for a few days. I ran the lull right over top of that, trying to get wire to the building, and buried that lull to the boards. That thing wasn't going nowhere. And I only hated myself for it because the job suit walked out half pissed because we were already kind of in the weeds on something, right?
Right.
Going, man, you were the one who dug that hole there.
You knew that it was there.
It's not like I didn't know it was there, right?
Right.
That one embarrassed me for quite a while, I got to admit.
Mm-hmm. The biggest screw ups. I've damaged 2 pieces of equipment, and I think those are what I call the biggest screw ups of my career, because I haven't screwed up anything that's going to cost somebody's life.
That's important.
You know, nothing that's going to risk safety of somebody, but I did manage to screw up 2 pieces of equipment that cost the company money to fix. The first one, working nights, I was running one of the big lifts, scissor lifts, through a double doorway,
Sure.
and we're talking the big boys, the 40-foot,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the
Full size
42-inch wide deck, and you have to collapse those down. You have to collapse the railings down to get them through the doorway, right? And so it was all collapsed. I was burning down the hall, getting out to where I needed to be. Went through the double door, didn't notice the control cable to the control box was hanging outside the lift,
Uh-oh.
and we were on night shift, and it hooked the panic bar to the door, and I ripped it so bad that the unit stopped, alarms went off.
So you sheared the cable, not the door.
Yeah.
The control
the
cable from
control
the control
cable,
box cable.
Come to find out, they had to replace the control cable all the way through the machine, from top deck all the way to the base.
Oh, no.
It wrecked it that bad.
That's not good.
That was like a $3,800 fix to fix that cable.
Yeah, that one sucks, buddy.
The other one, I smashed the windshield of my line truck with a light pole. I was running around standing light poles on the job site, and when we do that, typically we don't strap the poles down in the pole rack of the line truck.
Sure.
Because we're going slow. I mean, we're never getting over 5 miles an hour.
Right.
Like, we're just bobbing around the job site. And a car came around. It was a residential area. Car came around the corner of the parking lot. I swerved the truck, and then I had to quickly kind of get out of the way. So I put the gas on a little bit, and the pole head that was hanging in front of my windshield slid back and smashed the windshield.
Oh, that sucks.
It didn't break the pole. It didn't break the light. I was able to continue my job, but now I have a smashed windshield on a line truck. So those are the phone calls that you're just like, look, man, this just happened. And I'll say I'm the guy that won't hesitate to call if I screw something up. I won't. It's like, nope, I did it. I just need to put the steps in to get it fixed.
All right. So, which brings up kind of what I was going to get to here. You can never be scared to call up whoever the next authority is or the person who needs to know and say, I done fucked up.
Yep. You can't. You can't. One, the job can't afford it.
Correct.
And your career can't afford it.
Correct.
Because if you try to cover it up when it's bad enough, you're just going to get fired.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's an easy layoff when somebody didn't bring up a correctable mistake or just didn't mention things, right?
Right. 100%.
So, I mean, that points out the next point of, okay, so apprentices, we understand there's a learning curve. Then you become a J-dub. You have more responsibility there. You may not be running a job, but that's that next step up. You're going to be working on more complicated things.
Yep.
You're going to be handling bigger parts of the job. Unsupervised for the most part in the day-to-day grind. You're obviously dealing with your leadership and things like that. That's a really important time to learn the skill that you just talked about of admitting you've made a mistake and contacting the right people and bending over and just taking it.
Yeah.
Because I think that you get obviously more respect out of your company. At least they know when a mistake happens, Jason's good enough to call us up, admit his faults, and let us deal with it in the most efficient way and the way they want it handled once something does come up. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Yep. Now you jump forward again. And now you're in a position that we've both been in. You're a foreman or a second on a job site. Again, a different level of varying responsibilities and potential of bigger mistakes.
Right.
This is when I think it comes down to injuries can start to be the thing you really need. Not your own just personal injury. I mean, that can happen as a J-dub, running the equipment right, making sure your apprentices that you're working with are good. But once you become at that level, making sure the right people are on the project, making sure you know what point they're at, they got the safety equipment they need, et cetera, et cetera. I personally think that that's the level where you can really set yourself apart from the other people in that position. Yep. Not just a foreman, but someone who they can trust to do the right things.
Yep.
I think that's the most important time for career advancement, to not look stupid or make crucial mistakes as you're first starting to run work.
Right.
What do you think?
Right. No, I'll agree with you there. I think with the foreman's role, when you move from that J-dub to a foreman's role, the responsibility level increases so much because you have a crew that you are responsible for. If they screw up, that's your screw up.
There's something to be said for that. Yeah, certainly.
Right. And it's always said, hey, you know what? If a project fails, something goes horribly wrong, that's on me as a foreman. But if the project does well and everything goes well and the company's doing good and the project makes money, that's my crew. They did that. Right. But I think having the responsibility level as a foreman, and you hit it really good right on the head, it does shift over to a safety aspect on a large part, but at the same time, you're responsible for everything that gets installed on that job in a timely manner, in a productive manner, in the staging matter of a project. It's your responsibility. While Jason and I take a quick coffee break during this episode, we want to take a minute and shout out this week's sponsor, Andrew P. From the Buy Us a Beer app on our website, isowpodcast.com. Jason and I would like to personally thank you for sponsoring this week's episode and helping the podcast to grow. From all of us here at the Ice Shower After Work podcast, thank you, Andrew.
Oh, yeah, we're not just talking about damage. You make a great point, buddy.
Right.
It's all the other things that come with that. You ordered the wrong material and now you're stuck with it.
Right.
Or you ordered the wrong material and now your guys and gals are sitting around not doing what they really needed to do that day, and you're scrambling because, it's not always just a damage mistake, but a planning mistake, an organizational mistake of who you need, how many people you needed on this particular, the timing of projects sometimes.
Right.
You weren't as aware of the schedule as you should be, or you got caught in the weeds, or mistakes aren't always just damage or injury.
Right. It's functionality. It's processes.
That's the new mistakes that become possible to make as you take on more responsibility within your company and your career. Right. Sure. And those things only compound when you take the very rare step up from that running work foreman of running gigantic jobs.
Yep.
If the electrical portion of that, for example, is at if it's $2.5 million, that's a big job. And you make a mistake on something like that, that could be incredibly costly.
Right. And I think it's important to understand, though, too, like apprentices answer to their journeymen answer to their foremen answer to the PMs and the owners.
Correct.
Right. Like they are that big stopgap.
Yeah. Once the differentiation of who you contact between when you make a mistake and you need to tell them, when that's changes from walking across the job site to making a phone call to the shop.
Yep.
That's the jump.
Yep. And I think it's important for everybody to realize, no matter what position you're in, if you're an apprentice and you have to reach out to your journeyman because you messed something up and you made a mistake and he throws you under the bus, stop going to that foreman or stop going to that journeyman, go to the foreman.
Right.
Nobody needs to be tossed under the bus because we're all human, right?
We know what happens though.
Yep.
I've been blamed for stuff. I've been blamed for stuff that I wasn't even there that day.
Right.
Well, that must have been the new guy. Yeah, the new guy was on his couch with the flu, motherfucker. Like, what?
Right. Shut up.
I have admitted before, I have a slight bonus in the industry, as some other people do, not just me individually. I got into the trades as an adult. I knew better than to stand up for myself. Maybe not a young person who was a little not naive, but he just soft-spoken, quiet, didn't know their place in the industry yet. I knew enough to go to the guy and go, that's bullshit. I didn't have any. That's not my mistake. You told me to do it that way, or you gave me that box.
Right.
I could do that, I think, a little easier as an adult who is more used to stand up for themselves professionally than a new apprentice might be.
19, 20-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, I think in a lot of cases, that becomes a difference. And that's when you hope that the people you're working with are professional enough to admit their mistakes and not blame somebody else.
Right.
Because that's happening every day, and that's a real problem.
Well, let's talk about the level of fear that goes into that, right? So people operate in a state of fear a lot of the times in their jobs, especially in the construction industry. You mess up, you make a mistake, you're going to get fired, right?
Potentially.
Right. I've heard that said out of people's mouths.
Oh, people believe that, sure.
Right. And perfect case, it was wintertime, the equipment was in the shop to get repair, and I was in the shop making my rounds. I was having to talk to some people, and one of the PMs caught me, and he's like, "Hey, John, did you use this line truck this last summer?" And I'm like, "No, man, I used it once to sand some poles, and that was it. Open parking lot." I'm like, "Why? What happened?" He's like, "Well, the boom's bent." And I'm like, "Bent? Like, that's a solid steel boom. How did it get bent?" That's what we're trying to figure out. Nobody will fess up to it. And I looked right at him. I said, "Yeah, you're right, because all of your guys that are using that line truck on a day-to-day basis live in a state of fear for their jobs. They're not going to say, oh, well, they're not." And he looked right at me. He's like, "Well, they're not going to get fired." And I'm like, they don't understand that.
Yeah, they think they probably will.
And they don't get it. And so they're not going to tell you anything. Nobody's going to fess up.
You make an excellent point, man.
So if you operate in your career in a state of fear, I'm putting the challenge out to anybody. If you have to go to work in a state of fear to lose your job in case something happens, you need to leave the company you're with. You should not have to operate that way.
You make a good point. If I can argue with you a little bit there, I have a slightly different opinion. What you say makes sense. What I would say to most people is go to the people who are in charge of you at your job, whether it's you're an apprentice and you want to go talk to your foreman or the foreman to the PMs and the owners and things like that. Tell them that. Hey, listen, I want to be here. I want to be doing a good job. I'm putting in a good effort. But man, like I'm in a constant state of aggravation because I'm worried that any little thing is going to cost me my job, and I got a family at home, and we all know how it is. The fear of getting laid off is, even if you're real secure in your job, you've been with your company a real long time, I assume everyone still has that tiny voice sitting in the back of their head going, better not fuck up, man. Like,
Oh, I do.
you need this job, you know?
Yep.
We're never secure.
Ever.
Ever.
We are all replaceable.
Even a long-term employee who feels like they're bulletproof, you are one major fuck up at just the wrong time with just the small budget that you didn't have a lot of wiggle room away from them saying, hey, listen, man, we can't afford that. Fuck off down the road. It's been nice work with you.
Hey, and let's face it. If I die tomorrow, somebody's filling my position on Monday.
Well,
That's how it works.
Yeah, they're going to send my wife flowers and shit, but I mean, you know, they'll have a little party or something, but they're going to call off the hall and get another employee.
Yep.
Or promote someone who's ready to go. You know what I mean? Now, I do admit, I am in a position where, again, I got in as an adult, so I think it was just a little better or easier for me to go and tell people when something happened, right? I mean, not even so much a mistake, but I do remember one time, and I'm not patting myself in the back, but I am happy that I did this. It made me feel better about my career. I was working on a job where I could see the schedule end coming in a few weeks. I knew I wasn't going to get there. My inexperience had cost me enough time through enough ordering errors, scheduling errors, things like that over the life of the job. I knew I wasn't going to make the deadline. I sat in my truck on a half rainy day, talked myself up for about a minute and went, nope, you got to throw up the bat signal. You got to call the shop and you got to tell them you're not capable of getting this done on time. You need to send someone out here who can. I need the help. We need to make this happen, and I'm not going to be able to make it happen. Not only did my shop do that, but they did it right away, and I took absolutely no grief from anyone except the dude they sent out to help me because we'd worked together before, and he was giving me shit like, oh, you can't fucking handle your shit?
You can't
fuck you then.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Can't cross the finish line? I got you.
So those things are definitely going to happen, but that's what I was hoping we could kind of encourage anybody today listening who is in a varying position of authority, whether it's the first day or your 10,000th day.
Right.
You can never be worried about that. And if you feel like you're living in a state of fear, as you brought up, to just get back to your point, talk to your shop. Tell them you feel that way. You might be really surprised with what they tell you.
Yeah, maybe.
Sit you down and go, don't worry about that, man. Mistakes are going to happen. We're happy with what you're doing, or keep doing what you're doing. Don't be scared. Don't be fearful. You're not getting drawn and quartered.
Right.
You're not going to hang you from the yardarm. Worst case scenario, as you said, it's bad enough that they replace you. Well, learning lesson.
Yeah. But that's what mistakes are for, right? If you can't learn from them, they're no good. Right? And we will never remember our attaboys, our wins, our accomplishments. We're never going to focus on those, but in a heartbeat, we will end up remembering all the bad things. We tend to, as humans, focus on that.
Those things definitely tend to stick in your mind longer. You remember a bad experience with something, customer experience, over the happy ones, right? That's a natural human thing. I agree with what you're saying.
Right. But as long as we know what is the term, and forgive me for kind of blank spacing out here a little bit, but the definition of insane is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
That's right.
So
that's a definition of insanity.
Right. So like if you're in a position of power and you've got a guy that's making that same mistake over and over and over again, like something needs to happen. Right. And I've never been in that position. Now, the one guy that I did make cry because I lost my shit on him because of that fact, because he wouldn't learn.
Yeah, you mentioned that was a repeated mistake of the same mistake.
Of the same thing over and over again. I still wasn't in the position to lay him off, to send him somewhere else, to have him do a different task on the job. That wasn't my responsibility because I wasn't the foreman. I was just a J-dub that was in charge of this part of the job.
Right.
Right. Like I still didn't have that authority to do anything about it except for chew his ass, which I think I accomplished pretty well. But
I mean, obviously, you say that. You can, though, you can bring those things up to the foreman, obviously, and
I did.
You probably
Yep,
did,
yep,
right? Yeah.
Yep.
So,
but it's on him, and it's on the people above him to make that decision,
certainly.
to do whatever they want to do.
That in itself is the sort of a mistake that we skip right by here, maybe. You just brought it up kind of organically of knowing what information and things you need to give not only to someone you are leading. You might not be the foreman, but be a J-dub who's leading apprentices, for example, right? Knowing what to tell them and how to organize them and how to lead them. Well, you can make mistakes doing that. And you can also make mistakes of not sending the right information in a timely manner up the chain
Right.
to the people who know.
Right.
Like it's one thing. I was amazed the first time that the manpower person on my job site called me up mid-job and went, you got a minute? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I got a couple questions for you about so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm like, oh, what kind of questions you got? And then I got this blank line on the other end of the phone, and they went, do we keep them or do we scrap them? But I'm paraphrasing, right?
Right.
It was basically saying like,
How are they?
The cuts are coming.
Yep.
And well, that was something that it was a strange phone call to get. Let's say that,
Right.
Like you don't realize all of a sudden I realized all of a sudden that you now are in a position with your company where they trust your opinion about things.
Yep.
And for me, that also brought up a whole other level of, am I making a mistake here? Am I affecting somebody's career? Like we've talked about this before in our, right?
It's a real dark place you can get to real fast.
Real fast. And you don't want to be the assholes like, yeah, I got your goddamn future in my hands. Like, don't be that guy.
Don't be that dick.
Don't be that guy, right?
Yeah.
But people on a power trip who love authority can swing down that road occasionally.
Oh, pretty fast.
And that also mistake. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
But if somebody's a shit show, yeah, fucking spin them. Like,
Right.
we all know that's going to happen.
Right.
And we've talked before, if you're continuing getting laid off, don't blame your companies.
Blame yourself.
Blame yourself.
Look inward a little bit.
Right. Try to be better.
Yep. Ask the question. The next time you're with somebody, ask the question of them going like, hey, is this a thing? Like, am I doing this? If they're honest, they'll tell you.
Yeah, and if you're a young apprentice, and don't get me wrong, you take layoffs sometimes for no reason, like just
Right.
lack of work, right?
Yep.
Those things are going to happen. Don't, on the same note of like, don't be scared to make mistakes. Don't ever be fearful of, if they show up on Friday at noon with your check for you, don't be embarrassed. Happens to the best of us. Take that moment and ask, is this just because of manpower? Or is there something better I could have done that the next time I would have been on the keep list?
Right.
That's a real tough question to look another person in the eye and ask.
Yep.
But the value you get from asking that question is irreplaceable for you going forward if you want to have a long-term professional career where you get better and make less mistakes.
Right.
So,
Well, and the people that are handing out the paychecks in our cases, they're really non-biased. They're just doing what they've been told to do. Right.
oh, certainly.
So if you do ask that question, hey, is there something I can do to like remedy this next time for the next company or whatever? They're genuinely probably going to give you an honest answer because they're not connected to you.
you
they
might,
don't have
you
a
might
reason
not
to
like
lie.
the answer.
Right. But it's going to be an answer that you're going to be able to use.
Yes.
It's most likely not going to be bullshit.
I couldn't have said it better myself, buddy. That's the way to go.
Right.
So this is kind of a short one today, folks, but we just wanted to get a little information out there about, fuck ups are going to happen on the job site. Like
They will.
they will. Don't be scared. Bring it up. Mention what you did. And as John said, there is obviously times where you can correct your mistake. And as you go through your career from apprentice right up to leading people to running big jobs, you'll learn those varying levels of mistakes and how to handle them. And if you can correct it on the fly or if you need to run it up the chain. And if you don't know if you have the experience or authority to make that decision of how you handle it or who you need to tell, then you don't know enough. Call your boss
Right,
or call
exactly.
whoever the next person is.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
For sure. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
No, God,
Don't
no.
be.
You're going to make a bunch of them. It's
Yeah.
okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Everybody does it.
So
And
as
if you've ran into anybody that says that they've never made a mistake, they're a goddamn liar. Don't trust a word out of their mouth.
all right, yeah, the line for sure, right? Am I missing anything we should have brought up today, buddy?
Nope. I'll close out this one with just telling everybody, thanks for listening all the way to the end. It does help out with everything. And, hit us up on your players, rate, review, and subscribe.
Please, rate, review, and subscribe.
That's my ask of everybody out there. Rate, review, and subscribe, and let us know how we're doing, because we do take all that feedback. So
yeah, and please remember, everybody, if you don't do anything else, 507-607-ISAW, that's 507-607-4729. You can leave us messages there. We're getting some feedback now. We're reaching back out to people, so don't forget about that.
Yep, remember that. And Jason, just remember, man, your work keeps the world working.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you, everybody. Be safe this week, and sláinte, my friend.
Sláinte.